So I'm about to share with you the pitfalls of, well, what happens when you don't have a friendly or amicable divorce. There's lots of pitfalls. I'm going to share 10 of them with you. That's not an exhaustive list, but there's lots of pitfalls. The great news is that, well, you don't have to be stuck with that. I've got 10 suggestions, so stick around to the end of this recording. I've got 10 suggestions to show you how you can have an amicable divorce, how you have a greater likelihood of an amicable divorce, and that's even if your spouse is a high conflict kind of person. So stick around and let's dive in. Is an amicable divorce an oxymoron? Well, the thing is, okay, you're going through a separation and divorce, so probably things aren't perfect. Because if things were going along swimmingly, you wouldn't be getting a separation and divorce. At the same time, a friendly divorce or amicable divorce doesn't have to be an oxymoron. So the truth is this: if you are able to get through your separation and divorce process on an amicable basis, you will be able to get on with your future much sooner than if you have a divorce that is, well, not amicable. When you commit to an amicable or friendly divorce process, well, you will explore such ways to resolve your matters that include mediation. Maybe your lawyer and the other lawyer will negotiate between themselves to get you to an agreement. Mediation, arbitration. Maybe you will have four-way meetings with you, your lawyer, your ex-spouse, their lawyer, collaborative family law. There are a lot of methodologies available to allow you to have an amicable divorce. Now, well, if you don't have an amicable divorce, what does that mean? Well, that means that you are probably going to end up in a trial process, litigation that is, or an arbitration process, which is pretty much like litigation. So when you are focusing on getting an amicable divorce, what that means for you is that you don't end up in the same place as a lot of people who are going through a separation. That is, that they unwittingly end up getting dragged through protracted litigation, getting dragged through the court process without even realizing there was another option available to see their matter resolved. Now, if you're going through a separation or divorce, well, what do you need to have resolved? Well, three things really. You want to get resolved the parenting plan. What does that look like? What's the guardianship look like? What are the parenting responsibilities? What's the parenting plan? Who's making the decisions? That kind of thing. The second thing is that, well, are there support obligations, child or spousal support? You're going to want a clear agreement about that. The third thing, of course, is dividing your assets. Well, what is it going to be like to divide your assets? What does that look like at the end of the day? Well, when you go through an amicable divorce process, what ends up happening is that you end up coming to an agreement using one of the methodologies I talked about, rather than getting a court order after going to court. So there are some pitfalls if you don't get a friendly divorce. There's 10 pitfalls that I can think of right off the top of my head when people don't divorce amicably. So let's dive into what those pitfalls are. And I ask that you stick around to the end of this recording because I am sharing the biggest pitfall for last. Well, here's the first pitfall of not getting an amicable divorce. What is that pitfall? Well, it's expensive, really expensive. If you litigate, chances are you are going to spend a lot more of your hard-earned resources lining your lawyer's pockets with money rather than keeping those hard-earned resources for you and your family, for your future, for your kids' future. Pitfall number 2 of not getting an amicable divorce? Well, let me share with you, it has to do with the stress, the emotional turmoil. Now here's the thing, if you're going through a separation and divorce, isn't it stressful enough? Wow, you might be grieving what you thought your relationship was, you might be grieving what you thought your future was going to look like, your heart might be broken, you know, it's not easy. So when you throw litigation on top of all of that, wow, it can be really, really overwhelming and very, very stressful. Now, I'm not saying that if you go to mediation, it's not stressful. Of course it is. However, the stress tends to be a lot less because, well, when you're in litigation, imagine you have two lawyers, each think that they are right and they are going to win on behalf of their client. And they're smart, they're well educated, probably, all of those things are true. And yet, you don't know what's going to happen. And, well, that is very, very stressful. When you're in a mediation or other dispute resolution process, well, you can actually go, we're not really sure who's going to win that particular fight, so let's not have that fight and agree to do this instead. This works particularly well with parenting plans. Parents can get a lot more creative about how they're going to parent their kids in a way that serves their kids. So that brings me to the third pitfall of not having an amicable divorce, and that is the impact on your kids. If parents are stressed out to the nines because litigation is stressful, kids feel it. They feel it a lot. And they are going to know you're going through something even if you haven't shared with them that you are in the litigation process. The other thing that impacts kids is when mom and dad, or parents generally, are in conflict with each other. Well, that's not good for kids. It impacts, well, we know this now, it impacts the ability of their brains to develop. Yeah, that much. It is really hard on kids when parents are in conflict. And if you're in litigation, you're in conflict. Compare that to a mediation process where parents get together and they come up with an agreement where they both agree as to what the parenting plan is going to look like. This is what we know. Kids, they don't care whether parents stay together or not. They're going to get way past that. I mean, it's not unusual anymore. And, well, kids just want to get on with their lives and with their childhoods, of course, if their parents let them. And if kids who have separated parents see that their parents are working out stuff together and doing well together in terms of putting the kids first by agreement, well, that helps your kids. But if you're in ongoing conflict, it doesn't help your kids. Kids who come from high conflict families, they have a way greater likelihood dropping out of school, having trouble with drugs and alcohol. They have problems in their own relationships. So before you think about litigating, think about, what would the pitfall be for that? What would the pitfall be for my kids? Because, as parents, we do want what's best for our kids, don't we? Well, the third thing about not having an amicable or friendly divorce is that your relationship with the other party is never going to recover. When people litigate against each other, the likelihood of them being friends, being friendly, is really, really small. Sure, when people separate, there's often a lot of bumps in the road. I know when my husband and I separated, oh my gosh, talk about bumpy. It took us 6 months to get to a legally binding separation agreement, and that was a very stressful 6 months. Now, we stayed out of the court system. We didn't litigate. He hired a lawyer who was very collaborative, and we were able to reach a legally binding settlement. Now, did I end up having to pay more than I wanted to? Yes. Was it bumpy getting there? Yes. Was our agreement honorable in the end? Yes, it was. So now it's 4 years later, and, well, I don't think we're best friends or anything, but I can say, for the benefit of our kids, I have 2 stepdaughters and a daughter, for our children, it's great for them to see dad and me, either stepmom or mom, getting along. He's come over for Christmas dinner. We've had Thanksgiving together. We've gone on forest walks with the family. So that's the goal, because you want your relationship to recover, if not for you, for your kids. Pitfall number 4 of not getting an amicable or a friendly divorce has to do with how much time it takes. Chances are, if you do mediation or you resolve your dispute through negotiation, a 4-way meeting, mediation arbitration, you are going to get your matter resolved much sooner than if you litigate. The thing is that Court can take many, many months, sometimes even a year, to be able to set a date. When you finally get your court dates, well, sometimes you get bumped. In my jurisdiction, criminal matters have precedence over family law matters. So even if you're scheduled to go to court, you don't even know that you're actually going to get your matter started before a judge. So you're at the mercy of the court system. As well, court takes a lot of time in terms of, well, leading evidence, having someone take the stand, having their lawyer ask questions about all the things that are important to them, all the issues in the case, them being cross-examined by the other side. Well, it just really takes a long time. And then sometimes when the court is finally done, when arguments finally happened, and the judge is to make the decision, well, judges often don't make the decision right away. They might take weeks, months. I knew of one case, it was more than a year and a half for the judge to deliver the decision. Compare that to sitting down, mediating, maybe with the help of a mediator, rolling up your sleeves, having a discussion, and creating a parenting plan, a plan to divide your assets, sorting out the support obligations. What that means is that you get on with your future a heck of a lot faster than if you litigate. Another pitfall about, well, not getting an amicable divorce or friendly one is that it can also impact your other relationships. When people go through a court process, it can be pretty all-consuming, very stressful. It's taking a long time. It's ongoing. It's expensive. Maybe you have to lean on family members to help you finance your court stuff. Well, all of that impacts your other relationships. Maybe your best friend gets tired of hearing you whine about your court stuff. They want to get back to the fun person that they knew to begin with. So just remember that court, it doesn't just impact you, it impacts your kids, it impacts everyone, including your other relationships. Here's another pitfall about not getting an amicable divorce. And what that is that, well, if you litigate, if you go to court, guess what? Those proceedings, they are not private. When people go to court, often the most intimate part of their lives is something that will be explored in the courtroom. And you will be giving evidence, or your spouse will be giving evidence about very intimate personal details of your life. Well, if it's in a courtroom, that is going to be a public forum. Literally anybody can sit in on those proceedings. It reminds me, when I was a baby lawyer, very, very long time ago now, I did a trial. Now, it wasn't a family trial, but it was a situation where our client, he had premature hair loss. Now, this was back in the olden days when premature hair loss was a thing, and people were embarrassed by it, and bald heads weren't trendy like they are as I record this video, very trendy, and a good thing. Well, back then it wasn't. And this person, what he did is he got this really special kind of whatever thing, these plugs, or I'm not sure, to be able to have him, in his older age, have a full head of hair. Now, he was so ashamed about the hair loss that he did have, he relocated to the other side of our country. And so, and this is back, like I said, the olden days before everybody had the internet and social media and all that kind of stuff. And he established a new life here. So here's what happened. The company that fixed his hair, in the sense that they gave him this hair, well, they shared with the news media the fact that this particular person had gotten his hair loss treatment done with them. No, they did not have his consent to do that. So our client was horrified, came to us. My firm at the time, we went and we made an application to say, hey, this news agency breached this fellow's privacy. Well, guess what happened? Yeah, the newspapers were there again. The news cameras were there again. And what ended up happening, even though he had reestablished his life in a completely other end of the country, well, the information about something that was very personal and dear to him ended up being splashed all over the news and all over the newspapers again. Now, maybe that's not going to happen in your family law matter, but you want to think about this before you go to court, before you litigate, do you want the personal details of your life in the public forum? Probably not. I think about a judge, a very wise judge, once said, you know, if you've been in a relationship for any length of time, well, there's probably going to be some moments that you're not really proud of yourself, where you look like you're a big jerk. Even if you have a relatively functional relationship, there's going to be some times where you don't look so good. And it's those times, well, that's what court cases are made of. So, do you want those personal details where you don't look good or you didn't behave well being in the public forum? Yeah, you might want to think again. Oh, hey, it's me. Interrupting a little bit because I want videos like this to reach more people. So if you are enjoying what you see, if you're finding it helpful, please hit the subscribe button, which is somewhere up there. And also tell me, what was the biggest takeaway you had with respect to this video? Leave it in the comments below and I will answer every comment, every question, because that's what I do. And of course, flowing from that, if you're litigating with your ex, that is going to impact your reputation. When people know that people have gone to court, well, think about it. Johnny Depp, Amber Heard, at the end of the day, well, their dysfunctional relationship didn't stay between them. It was pretty public. And I mean, I don't even watch TV or the news, and I heard a lot about it. And of course, some friends showed me some videos and stuff. And the thing is, well, both Johnny Depp and Amber Heard's reputation have been sullied, just the very fact that they ended up in court. I know I've always been a big Johnny Depp fan, and anytime I mention him in front of anyone I know, they go, oh yeah, he used to be great, not so much anymore. The point being is it impacted his reputation in a huge way, at least it appears to be so. So you don't want that to happen to you and your changing family, do ya? I'm just about to get to the biggest pitfall for, well, if you avoid or if you don't have an amicable divorce. But before that, let me share with you, when your divorce isn't amicable, another pitfall is that, well, you don't control the outcome. Again, you are handing very important decisions about you, your kids, your finances, your future to a judge who doesn't know you, a judge who doesn't understand you, know what's important to you. Of course, judges do their best. Of course, they tend to be emotionally intelligent. Of course, they tend to do the right thing. But really, do you want to hand over the control, the decision making to somebody that is not you or the other party? Something you want to think about, because it's a big pitfall. Finally, the largest pitfall, the biggest pitfall that I think of not getting a friendly or amicable divorce has everything to do with the fact that, well, just because your court case is over, does it mean that the conflict is going to end? This is the problem. If you are in conflict with the other party and you have gone through the litigation process, just because court's over doesn't necessarily mean it's over. I'm thinking about a case, well, one case I was involved in for, it's true, 11 years. And in that particular case, had to do with a child and high conflict, and one of the parties had a personality disorder. And the issue was that, well, they litigated, and one of the parents, well, they lost. And now it is, from the time of that court date, it is many years later, and that particular person continues to sully the other parent's reputation, continues to try to expose the child to a, well, who's pretty much almost grown up by now, a very damaging narrative about the primary parent. The point being is, just because court ended, it didn't end. Even though the trial ended, there were over 35 other court applications made by the other parent. So just because court ends, just because litigation ends, doesn't necessarily guarantee that the conflict is going to end. And that's why I think that is the largest pitfall of what happens when you don't have an amicable divorce. So now that I've given you all these pitfalls, what can you do to increase the likelihood of an amicable divorce? Well, let me share that with you. So one way to avoid the pitfalls of not having an amicable divorce is, well, to have an amicable divorce. And how do you do that? Well, first of all, you want to make sure you hire a lawyer who has dispute resolution training, and I mean a lot of it. Now, in law school, I don't think they teach, even to this day, much dispute resolution training at all. But if your lawyer is on the road to becoming qualified or is qualified to be a mediator, it means that they have extra dispute resolution training that goes well beyond law school. That means that your lawyer will have a greater likelihood of keeping you out of court, a greater likelihood of getting you to settlement, a greater likelihood of saving you a ton on legal fees because they won't be unnecessarily combative. A second thing you want to do to accomplish getting an amicable divorce is, well, you want to be communicative. And what I mean by that is when your ex-spouse or their lawyer is trying to communicate with you or your lawyer, you want to make sure that those communications are returned so that the matter can move forward. I think of one case I have, I'll say they're called Jason and Martha. Well, Martha's a pretty high conflict kind of person. She's really mad at Jason, and they separated. And the thing is that Jason won't communicate with Martha. So what happens is Martha gets angrier and angrier and angrier and angrier, and then there's a lot of correspondence that she instructs her lawyer to write that just really isn't helpful. The thing is that if there is some kind of a communication about moving the matter forward, whether that comes from Jason to Martha, I'm not saying in this particular case it's not helpful that Jason talks to Martha. He gets me to talk to the other lawyer so that the information can go to Martha. The point being, we want to keep being communicative with the other side rather than sticking our head in the sand and avoiding things, because actually what happens then is it just causes the litigation piece to spin out of control. Another thing to remember, if you want an amicable divorce, is always to remember that you are still a family. So the thing is that if you want an amicable divorce, it's important to remember that you are still a family. Now, I know, when you fell in love, maybe got married, had your children, you didn't expect to be going through a separation and divorce. I get it. I certainly didn't. However, when you think, well, you know, my family just looks different than I expected and still a family, that is a really good perspective to have to keep your separation and divorce process amicable. Problem is that a lot of people think, okay, we're separated now, so this means that we have this camp and that we're no longer a family. And, you know, we have divided loyalties, we have this person's, you know, extended family, this person's extended family, kids caught in the middle who, you know, want to align with one parent or the other. It's just a mess. The point is, you're still a family. It just looks different than you expected. The other thing to remember, that when you want an amicable divorce, you should also manage your expectations. You're going through divorce, for goodness sakes. And even if you are mediating, even if you are working on negotiating a resolution, things can get tense. They can get bumpy, particularly up to the point where you get that legally binding settlement agreement. Just remember, expect bumps along the way. Expect it to have some tension. Expect it to be tough at points. Manage your expectations, because if you do, well, and you know that, gosh, that was a very uncomfortable letter I just got. Gosh, I thought my spouse was being a big fat jerk when they said that. If you expect it, well, you'll realize the world isn't coming to an end, and you can get closer, that is, get to that resolution without freaking out over every bump in the road. Expect the bumps. The other thing you want to do to really increase the likelihood of your divorce and separation being amicable or friendly is, well, I didn't invent this, but it's called the BIFF method of communication. What does that stand for? Well, brief, informative, friendly, firm. And this particularly works when you have a high conflict spouse, but it works for all kinds of communications. So Here's what I always say to my clients. You know, if your spouse sends you a really rude email and you spend 4 hours crafting an email that tells them what a jerk they are, tells them that the separation and divorce is all their fault, you go on and on about why the email they sent you was wrong and why you're right and all of that stuff. And there goes your evening. You could have been doing something really fun. I don't know, hanging out with your kids or watching that Netflix series you always wanted to watch or having a bath. Who knows? Something great. You could have been spending your time doing that. Because here's the thing. When you send that missile email or that missile text, do you think your spouse is going to read it and go, oh, right, I know. I am such a jerk. It is all my fault. You are completely right. That's not going to happen. So don't waste your time. So remember, when you are communicating with your ex, particularly if you have kids, keep it brief, keep it friendly, keep it informative, be firm. I often coach my clients on how to do that. And it not only, well, saves the person a lot of time and energy and grief, but it also can actually really help transform relationships. Doesn't really kill you to say, I hope you're having a great day. I know some clients say, I'm not there yet. I really don't hope that they're having a great day. I get it. The thing is that brief, informative, friendly, firm, I didn't invent it. Bill Eddy of the High Conflict Institute came up with it. And thank you, Mr. Eddy. It really, really works, and it really helps families make sure that they have an amicable divorce. The 7th way that you can guide yourself to have an amicable divorce is, well, to be like Gandhi. What do I mean by that? Well, Gandhi took down the British Empire by being nonviolent. Okay, he wasn't perfect like the movie shows him to be. However, he always practiced respect, compassion, and care. I remember the first time my husband and I separated. We separated 2 times. And I was broken. I was devastated. And he was being, well, a complete jerk to me at the time. And I said to my psychologist, I feel like the universe is asking me to be Gandhi, for goodness sakes. And he said, yeah, exactly. And he said, start a forgiveness practice and see what happens. Now, that's what I did. I started a forgiveness practice called Ho'oponopono, and it's a Hawaiian forgiveness practice. We know, really transformative. The point being is when you have compassion, respect, care for your ex-spouse, well, the likelihood of you having an amicable divorce is going to be a lot higher. Another thing you can do, and this is particularly if you have kids, really important if you have kids, is don't lose sight of the fact that the other parent, well, that's half of who your kids are. And that's the other parent. And so if you don't lose sight of that, just know that those kids that you've got, well, you know, chances are that you have them because of the other parent. And what an opportunity that is. And also remember, as far as your kids are concerned, well, that's half the other parent. So you want to make sure that you don't lose sight of that. Another thing to do if you want to have an amicable divorce is if you accidentally end up hiring a lawyer who is a combative jerk, get rid of them. Get rid of them fast. I've got a case right now where my client, he had hired a lawyer who was very combative. And he was afraid to walk away from that lawyer because he thought, well, I'm already so into it. I've already paid this lawyer so much on my case. I don't want to just walk away and get a new lawyer. Well, here's the problem. This lawyer took this client to court and it ended up costing him hundreds of thousands of dollars when the other side had wanted to settle for a fraction of what the court found against him. The point being is that nobody told him and he didn't know. Hey, if I've got a combative lawyer, I'm getting out of here and I'm going to hire somebody who, well, has dispute resolution skills, who's going to get me to the goal of having my matter resolved rather than dragging me through litigation and having it cost me a lot. Finally, here's the 10th thing. This is how you're going to, well, one really great way of getting an amicable divorce. That is focusing on the goal. What I mean is that your future is a lot closer than you think, even if you're knee deep in it right now. A lot of people who work with people who go through separation, they say that when people focus on what their goals are, who they want to be post-divorce, and they show up as that person now, well, the likelihood of them having an amicable divorce is much greater because they are not necessarily pulled in every which way direction. Like, for example, when their spouse sends them a nasty email, well, instead of freaking out about it, they think, is my future self who's gotten on with their life, are they going to freak out over this? No, I'm focusing on the goal to my future. And that, my friend, is what I want for you. This is Val. Much, much love. If you found this video helpful, and I hope you did, please give it a thumbs up. Because if you do that, then this video will be able to reach more people. And as well, if you want to stay in closer touch with me, please ring the little bell icon so that you can subscribe to this channel. This is Val. Much, much love.